पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर् द्यौः शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशाः शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirma Edhi Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So we begin today on verse number 24. Let's chant together. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayaha param bhavamajananto mama vyayamanuttamam. Not knowing my immutable, unsurpassed, supreme nature, the ignorant regard me, the unmanifest, as coming into being. So we saw last week that who we pray to and what we get are connected. If we look upon the divine being as merely a provider, just like we have when we are young, when we are little, when we need something, we go to our parents and then they give it to us. So similarly, it's possible to look upon God as a provider who gives me what I want. And when we pray to God in that way, God gives us what we want. What Krishna points out here is, if our understanding of God is limited, in the sense that when we look upon God as a provider, we are limiting the infinitude of the divine being. And because our perception of the divine is limited, the benefit we get is also limited. And I mentioned briefly last time how it's possible to go to a king and say, can you please give me 2 pounds of eggplants? And of course, the king is capable of giving you those eggplants, and you will get those eggplants. But when we know that the king is capable of giving us much, much more than merely eggplants, then we realize that it seems at one level a little bit foolish to ask a king for this when we could get much more. So it's not wrong to ask God for whatever things that we ask for, but it's also good to recognize that what we ask God for is related to how we see God. It's also related to what our own priorities in life are. We might remember that incident in Vivekananda's life. As Narendranath, as a young man, when he went to Ramakrishna, and he was passing through a very difficult period in life. His father had passed away. He was the eldest son, and he needed to go and look for a job to maintain his family. And so it was a real crisis. And so he goes to Ramakrishna and says, please, you must do something. I cannot bear to see the difficulty my family is passing through. So the Divine Mother listens to whatever you say. Why don't you pray to her and see that this crisis in my life and my family is removed. And then Ramakrishna says, why do you want me to pray? I mean, he was right there in the temple complex. So he said, why don't you go yourself and pray to the Divine Mother? And so then this young man, Narendranath, goes to the temple of Bhavatarini Kali. And as soon as he stands before the mother, he says, oh mother, give me love for God. Give me all the qualities that are necessary for our spiritual development. He prays for that. Give me vairagya, give me strength, give me this. And then he returns. And when he comes back to Ramakrishna, so did you ask the Divine Mother for whatever things you wanted? And he said, oh, I completely forgot. I only prayed for spiritual things. And then Ramakrishna said, how foolish. That's not what you wanted. Go again. And so he sends him to the temple again. But when he stands before the Divine Mother's image in the temple, he completely forgets everything. And then again he prays only for his spiritual life. Second time he comes. And again Ramakrishna scolds him. He said, no, that's not what you wanted. Go and again pray. So he goes third time and the same thing happens. And then when he comes back, Narendranath himself realizes in his heart that his priorities in life are different. So what we seek in life, what we want in life is a good indication of what our own priorities in life are. And so what Krishna is pointing out here is that those who do not recognize that highest, immutable, unsurpassed, supreme nature of the divine, see that divine as only coming into being. Coming into being really means taking a form, taking an identity. Even when we see God as a father, God as a mother, or God in any number of its forms and qualities, it is still coming into being of that infinite being. So we are kind of limiting God when we ascribe name and form to the divine being. And that's what Krishna is saying. Not knowing my immutable, unsurpassed, supreme nature, the ignorant regard me, the unmanifest, as coming into being. Now looking at theistically, we can, because I've been saying, oh, God coming into being, but it can also be seen in a subjective way. How do I see my own being? In reality, every one of us, the Atman, is immutable. It's supreme, it's infinite. But we see our own selves as having come into being. We see ourselves as really human beings, and then we were born at some point, and the body is perishable. So we have found ourselves into this perishable world with birth at one end, death at the other. And because of that understanding of our own selves, everything that we perceive in this world is colored by our self-understanding. So even the God that we pray to and worship is colored by our own understanding of ourselves. And that is it. So how we see ourselves influences how we see the world, influences how we even think of God. All of these three they seem like three entities, clearly. I as a person, the world in which I live, and the God who I worship. They seem like three entities, but they are very related. And all of these things are dependent on my self-understanding. And therefore, the message that Gita returns to again and again is find out who you really are. We saw in the entire second chapter, Krishna emphasizes the nature of the Atman. Because if I know who I am, then my understanding of the world, my understanding of whatever reality is behind it or above it will become clear. Verse 25. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudhoyam nabhijanati loko mam ajamavyayam. I am not manifest to all, being veiled by my mysterious power, Yogamaya. This ignorant world does not know me, the unborn and immutable. And as I pointed out on an earlier occasion, whenever Krishna uses the first person, I or me, we need to always ask this question, who is this me? Is it the historical Krishna, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, or who? And then we have to look at when we use the word I and me. So when we say, oh, I, or I do this, or I'm doing this, who are we referring to? And most of us, I would imagine, when we say I, we are referring to, well, this being who is now lives in this world, which is under the domain of time, that mortal being. And my I is associated with this body, this mind, this ego. That's who my I is. Now when Krishna says I, you're very clear, I am not manifest to all. So when Krishna is saying I, who is Krishna referring to? If Krishna's I is also same as Krishna's body, mind, ego, then what is the difference between Krishna and me? Well, Krishna thinks of himself in not different terms than I think of myself. But what makes Krishna Krishna and what makes me me? What makes Krishna different from me is that when Krishna says I, he is referring to the real I. He is going beyond, because Krishna has a historical dimension. He was a person of history. But Krishna also has an eternal dimension. That is, the reality beyond Krishna's body, mind, ego is the spirit. And that's why we worship Krishna, because Krishna knew exactly who he was. And what Krishna says that every one of us has that capacity in our own life, that when we say the word I or me, our I or me does not have to be limited to this body-mind complex. That our own I or me can be the same infinite spirit. The same infinite spirit which previous verse 24, referred to as immutable, as unmanifest, as unsurpassed. That's as much, my spirit is as much like that as Krishna's spirit. The only difference between Krishna and me is Krishna knows that he is that spirit, while I am seeing this body, mind as myself. So the reason we are not able to see Krishna in his own nature, Krishna as Krishna truly is also because I am not able to see myself in my true nature. And that's why I am not manifest to all. Actually, you can pretty much substitute the word I with the Atman here. The Atman is not manifest to all, being veiled by my mysterious power, Yoga Maya, the Atman's. Now, what is this Yoga Maya? Yoga, we said, is to join, is the joining. So the joining or the coming together of the gunas, the sattva, rajas, tamas, this material universe, that itself is Maya. We know that all of our thinking, feeling and willing and actions, everything is based on this framework which accepts the material universe as real. That's the framework under which we live and move and think. Everything that happens in our life, about past, present, future, it's all based on this idea that the material world that I encounter is real. And the material world is made of these primary attributes of Prakriti, sometimes called as Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the three gunas, also can be seen as a world within the domain of, in Sanskrit, it's sometimes called Desha, Kala, Nimitta, means time, space, and causality. So our thinking of ourselves, our thinking of the world is controlled by these three factors: time, space, and causality. We cannot think of the equipment that we have, the mind, is incapable of thinking of anything beyond time, of anything which is beyond space, anything which is not bound by the law of causation, whether cause and effect. Because that's the default world in which we live and move and function. And because of that, and that itself becomes the yoga maya. That itself is maya, because the world that we see is colored by time, space, and causality. And we are not able to go beyond. It's like a veil. If we are able to remove the veil, we'll see the truth as it is. But because we are seeing that same truth through the veil, colored by time, space, and causality, that's what this world looks. So it's not as if here is this world and there is the truth, and all I need to do is to stop looking here and look there. They are not two different things. The reality is only one. The same reality, when it gets covered, so to speak, appears different. And objectively, there is the classical example of a coiled rope mistaken for a snake. When I mistake in a semi-lit room, I mistake the rope for a snake. It's not like the rope is here and the snake is there, and all I need to do is to stop looking at the rope and look at the snake. No, it's actually the same entity. But I don't know, my ignorance of the rope makes it possible for the snake to appear. Once I know the rope to be a rope, I will not be able to see the snake anymore. I cannot see the rope and the snake at the same time. Exactly in the same way, my ignorance of the Atman is making me see myself as a human being. As long as I see myself as a human being, I will not know that I am divine. I will not know that I am spirit. Because the two are not separate. It's just my wrong perception of the spirit that is making me see myself as a human being. So, if we have come from the animals, from the apes to the human stage, that's great, that's wonderful. But we need to stop being human in order to become divine. We cannot cling too tightly to our human identity and then say, oh, this I don't want to give up, but I want to become divine. That won't occur. So at some time, we have to rise beyond our limitations as human beings to become divine. And what prevents us from doing it is this yoga maya, our being trapped in this world filled with time, space, and causality. And that's why Krishna says, this ignorant world does not know me, the unborn and immutable. And that's really you and me, all of us. We are unborn. The Atman was never born. Why do I feel I'm born? Because I'm identified with the body. I mean, what is our birthday? What is the date of birth? What means when I say I'm so many years old, what exactly do we mean? It simply means so many years ago, X number of years ago, this body appeared on this planet. That's all. So the appearance of the body becomes my birth. In other words, I'm saying this is me. And that is ignorance. That is why he says ignorant world does not know me, because really I'm unborn. I'm immutable. I cannot be cut into pieces. What can be cut into pieces is the body, but not me, the Atman. So that our ignorance is what produces all the sorrow and suffering in our lives. Verse 26. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. I know, Arjuna, all beings past, present and future, but nobody knows me. So, how does Krishna know past, present and future? Because he has gone beyond time. We are being controlled by time. There is one text called Vairagya Shatakam, written probably in 13th or 14th century. It's a beautiful, beautiful text. In that Bhartrihari, the poet, saint poet who composed that, it says, Kalona yata vayameva yata. Time doesn't pass, it's we who pass. It's just relative motion. We think, oh, time is not passing. Well, nothing, time doesn't go anywhere. Time is always here. It's we who get old. Time just stays. It's we, when we pass through the stages of birth, childhood, youth, old age, and then it's we who move. But we have this illusion that the time is passing. We are being controlled by time. We are just like a cat will play with the mouse, time plays with us. But if and when we are able to go beyond the control that time has over us, then past, present, and future become meaningless. Past, present, and future are continually shifting borders of this time dimension. I mean, this moment is the present moment. The very next moment, that present moment has already become a past moment. And that which was future has become present. Or today, tomorrow, this today will become yesterday, right? And what is tomorrow now will become today tomorrow. So this, next year, last year, and this year, or tomorrow, yesterday, and today are continually shifting. There is no fixed today. And so we are trapped into this. And I've mentioned on earlier occasion how it robs us of our life really. Very few of us are really even able to live, because how much of our life is being controlled by our past and our future. Memories of the past kind of keep us, drag us sometimes. Both pleasant memories becomes of the past become a way to escape. And we think about, oh, the good times we had. And usually we kind of escape into this good memories of the past because suppose the present is really painful. It's not happy at all. Then the only way to escape the present is to then think about the good things we had. And a lot of times you'll find people say, oh, in the good old days. Well, in the good old days, those people really didn't really feel it all that good old thing. Always we kind of, only the pleasant memories of the past kind of we try to retain. And then it really appears to be much better than our present. But there are also painful memories of the past, which we don't want to think about, but somehow we are not able to shake them off. So either way, pleasant or painful, the past intrudes into our present. Similarly, there is the anxiety about the future. Anxiety about tomorrow. Is it going to snow? Will I be able to drive? Where will I park my car? These are all anxieties about the future, or about next year, or about 10 years. So right now, I'm living right now, but my mind is being dragged by memories of the past. My mind is being sucked into the future, by anxieties, worries, hopes for the future. But I can only live now. So the present is passing away, is continually, I'm getting older every moment of my life, but not even living my life because the past and the future controlling me. And that's why Krishna says, I know. He's really showing here that past, present, and future have no meaning for him because he has gone beyond time. And we can do that too, provided we know our real dimension. But nobody knows me. In the commentary, Shankaracharya said, nobody other than one who is a true spiritual seeker. So we can know ourselves if we are truly seeking the self, truly seeking the spirit. A question might come is how and why will Maya not delude an enlightened being while it will delude the rest of us? And one way of understanding that is, if I'm in disguise, and if I'm disguised really well, then others will be fooled. I still know who I am. It's others who will not know. So in the same way, the Maya or this whole thing that is superimposed on that reality, that on which it is superimposed is not deluded by it, but the others are deluded by it. It's one of my cousins years ago. He was very small. He was probably maybe 4 or 5 years old or something. And we had gone to some kind of a fair, and in that crowd he was lost. And so he started crying, as a little boy, of course. And then the police found him, and then they asked him, "Are you lost?" And this is what he said. He said, "No, I'm not lost. My parents are lost." Because he says, how can I be lost? I'm here. You see? So, I mean, we never think about it that way. So, from that little boy's perspective, I'm right here. How come I'm lost? It's my parents who are lost. While we, for an objective standpoint, we think this boy is lost. And so that's important thing to remember, that one who knows I'm the spirit knows that person is the spirit. Others may mistake that person to be a human being, which is why often we are not able to recognize an illumined person. Someone may be an enlightened being, a Jivan Mukta, but the Jivan Mukta knows I'm a Jivan Mukta, but others may not recognize, and that's what he says here. But nobody knows me. Sri Ramakrishna, I mean, how many people who went to Dakshineshwar knew Ramakrishna to be an avatar, knew him to be an incarnation, knew him to be an extraordinarily gifted divine being? Very few. Some people saw him as a saint, some people saw him as a good person, and some people just saw him as a crazy priest who apparently talked with the divine. And so, as I said before, what we see outside and how we interpret it is a better reflection of our own selves than about the thing that we are interpreting. Verse 27. Ichchadvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. All beings, O scorcher of foes, are deluded at birth by that deception due to the pairs of opposites which arise out of desire and aversion, or descendant of Bharata. That's our life. Ichcha dvesha, likes and dislikes. Things which bring us joy, we like. Those, and not just things, I mean, by things, I mean things, people, places, everything. Any entity that makes us happy, we like them. any entity which brings me pain, I either dislike or I hate. Because every one of us wants to be happy. None of us wants to suffer. So our life is so much controlled by our likes and dislikes. And unlikes, if you're a Facebook fan. So again, this like, dislike, unlike, it's kind of so much gone into just that it's the spirit of the times, if you like. But we don't recognize that while we might think I choose something out of freedom, or I choose not to do something out of freedom, it's often not recognized that really we are not really, there is no freedom there. I'm being controlled by my, as this verse says, I'm controlled by my desire and my aversion. Things that I want and things that I don't like. So it's like this. When you go to a shop, let's say you want to buy a pair of shoes, and then you have this wide selection, and then you look at a number of them, and then finally, after seeing, say, something like 25, 30 pairs, and finally you choose one. Now, really you might think, well, I have made a free choice. I weighed all the pros and cons, and finally I chose this particular pair of shoes. But maybe not. Maybe it's more likely that that pair of shoes chose you. By that I mean, given my liking, given my ideas about what color would suit me, given my ideas about what is good taste, so I already have these existing notions about the ideal color, the ideal taste, the ideal form. Based on those parameters, I could not have chosen any other pair. And so even our freedom to choose might not be very real. And our entire lives that way are being controlled by our prejudices and biases. And I'm not using the word biases in a necessarily a negative way. The idea is we already have fixed ideas about what is good. And different people have different ideas. That's why when you go to a mall and there are 10 different brands of a similar entity, and then people choose different ones. Some people might like an iPhone. Some people might like an Android device. Again, they are available. For some people, there are different considerations, either due to taste or the cost or whatever. So our freedom may not be true freedom. And that's what he's pointing out here. These pairs of opposites which arise out of desire and aversion, this is what deludes us right from the beginning. And which is why we are not able to see the reality, read the truth as it is. Verse 28. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. But those are virtuous actions whose sins have been at an end, are freed from the delusion of the dualities, and worship me with firmness of vow. Now, what has been said up to this point is the kind of a generality of the people. But then, does that mean that no one makes an attempt to look at the truth? No, some people do. Who are those people? Whose virtuous actions, whose sins have been at an end. Those are now. What is this virtuous actions? Clearly, those who live according to dharma, with honesty, with truthfulness, with unselfishness, and whose hearts are purified. Sins have been at an end. The sin here word really is not in the the way the word sin is used in Semitic traditions as an act of disobedience to God. But by sin here is meant that anything that entraps me more into this the cause and effect mess of karma, so to speak. So the more karma I create, the more I get bound to this world of duality. And that's really the sin that is spoken of here. Now, when will the sins be ended? If I can continue to do work without getting bound by it. And that's the spirit of karma yoga. If I can work, as Krishna pointed out in the second chapter, if I can work, do the good work, do the right thing, do what is appropriate, but not in a selfish way, without seeking any selfish goal out of it. Do it purely out of love. Do the right thing, do the good thing, but with no selfishness in heart. That will purify the heart. And that is where the sins will end. Such people are free from the delusion of the dualities. The delusion of the duality is what I mentioned before. This thing will make me happy, this thing will bring me sorrow, so I like this, I dislike this. All this duality is really deluding us, making us unaware of our nature as spirit. And it is such people who have been able to live honestly, truthfully, in an unselfish way. They are then able to worship me, worship the true divine, the infinite reality with a firmness of vow. Firmness means with perseverance. And to some lesser or greater degree, every one of us, we see ourselves as spiritual seekers. That is what we are trying to do. The firmness of our commitment may vary from person to person, but the firmer we get, the more determined we get to realize the goal, we will find the closer the entrapment that the material world has over us, we'll become free from it. So it's actually a continuous struggle. The world is not going to be particularly helpful to you in your spiritual struggle. That's just how things are. And that's why genuine, sincere spiritual seekers will always be a minority. That's just the way it is. And that's the problem. We have to see ourselves as the Atman, but when you go out in your workplace, your family, your friends, and everyone, they are going to just look upon you as a human being. And that makes it difficult. When everyone sees you as a human being, think about it this way. How often we determine our worth based on what other people see us as. If people around us keep on telling me, oh, you are worthless, you're stupid, and if I'm weak, at some time or the other, I'm just going to be miserable. Because everyone says I'm stupid. Maybe I am. So I'm allowing other people to determine who I am. And that time then, we need to have this firm belief in ourselves. Well, even if the entire world were to say I'm stupid, I can look at myself and say, well, is that true? And maybe it doesn't mean that the whole world is always wrong. Maybe I am stupid. But that's different. At least if I recognize myself as stupid and the world says that's stupid, well, look, say, well, they know exactly what they're saying. But it's possible that others may completely misjudge me. I know who I am, and people around me may not judge me properly at all. So where is my strength then? That if everyone around me says something very different from how I think of myself, and I remain firm, I remain unaffected by it. And that needs practice. That needs a lot of strength. And that's why, if that were to happen, If someone were to say something nasty to you, if someone were to insult you, you wouldn't be affected. I mean, why would I be affected? I mean, at least you could, if someone were to come and give you, land a blow on you, at least you are physically hurt. But if someone is there standing 10 feet away from me and says, you are stupid, well, if you don't understand that language, then you're not affected at all, right? If someone abuses you in a language you don't understand, you're not affected. It's just sound. But if you understand the meaning of that word, but still, why am I affected? There's nothing has been done. So why would the words affect me? That's something we need to consider. That's just one example. It's not like everybody is nasty to you. But I mean, it can work the other way too. If someone can say, you are a genius. Now, don't believe everyone who tells you you are a genius. Again, because the thing is this. When everyone says something good about you, we accept it without reservation. If somebody says something not very complimentary to you, then you say, well, this person doesn't understand anything. But neither is necessary. We just need to have a right understanding of who we are. Other people praising us doesn't make us better than who we are. Other people criticizing us doesn't make us worse than who we are. We are who we are. That needs a strong inner strength. And if we have that strength, then even if the whole world looks upon me as a human being, deep down in my heart I can say, I'm the infinite spirit. But it will need some time to acquire that strength. And that's why being part of a spiritual community helps. Because at least during that small period of time that you are able to spend, maybe twice a week or thrice a week, at least you are in a subset of this large humanity, of a small number of people who at least share some of your ideals, who are all at least trying to think of themselves as the spirit, who are trying to rise above their limitations as human beings. And it's much easier to practice thinking of ourselves as spirit when we are in the company of other people who are also trying to think of themselves as spirit. And therefore, this delusion of dualities is what is really spoken of. Delusion of dualities means the world, as I said, is not generally going to be very helpful. And so in some ways, spiritual seekers are like salmons. You have to swim in the opposite direction. We normally tend to follow the path of least resistance. Like if you're swimming downstream in a river, it's so much easier. You go faster. If you're swimming upstream, then that's difficult because the current, the water current is not going to help you. You're swimming in the opposite direction. And in some ways, spiritual seekers have to be like salmons. We are really swimming in the opposite direction. 99.9% of the world believes in the total reality of this material universe. They see themselves as human beings. They see you as a human being. And it's so much more easier to just flow with the current and say, well, that's what everyone says, and let me just... And you might probably have some lesser conflict, but if you're trying to swim in the opposite direction, say, no, I'm the spirit. Even if nobody thinks so, I know I'm the spirit. And you try to live accordingly. In the beginning, it's tough. It's difficult. You don't get a lot of help from the world. But if you have this firmness of vow that this verse 28 mentions, dridha vrataha, dridha, you're very firm in that, gradually you begin to see the light. It makes you stronger. So that little strength pushed with determination increases our strength. So we'll stop here today at verse 28. There are only 2 more verses remaining, but I think it's good to stop here so that we'll have some time for discussion. You have any thoughts, ideas, questions about what we have said so far?
So, Swamiji, on the topic of building strength to not get affected, you've given some examples of ways in which we can build our general strength. Are there some specific ways we can practice? You use the word practice. So is it we put ourselves in front of people who are offensive, or we?
No,
You
no,
know,
no,
how does
no.
that
You don't have. You don't have to. There will be offensive people in the world. You don't have to go on searching for them. Everyone has their share of people who create trouble. Mm, I think one simple way would be that if you read Vivekananda's 4 yogas, that gives plenty of tips about what we should need to, what we need to do, how we can do it, and most importantly, I think um, the spiritual practice that one has received from one's own guru or teacher. If we do that practice sincerely, with faith, with perseverance, it really builds up enormous strength inside. And with that inner strength, we can overcome most of these challenges in life. Anything? Okay, so then just 2 more verses. Let's do verse number 29. Jara marana mokshaya mama shritya yatanti ye te brahma tat viduf kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Those who strive for freedom from decay and death, taking refuge in me, know that Brahman, all about the embodied self and action as its entirety. So those who strive for freedom from decay and death, spiritual seekers, because decay and death is what happens to all material entities. Vivekananda once put it very beautifully. He said that every composition presupposes a certain future decomposition. So if my body now is some material particles have come together, that's what, and as long as the force that holds these particles together is operative, this body is going to continue. At some point in life, that which holds these particles together, that force is going to loosen up, is going to go away. And that is when then the constituents of this body will return to their respective sources. That's how then every body will either return to be a heap of ashes or a heap of dust. So every composition presupposes a certain decomposition. It's a very, I like the way Vivekananda put it. So and that's the truth with every material entity, decay and death. There's a time when it comes together, we call it birth, growth, transformation, and at some point, decay and death. Who are spiritual seekers who want to go beyond this world of decay and death? So those who strive for freedom from decay and death, taking refuge in me. Again, look at the word me, meaning the spirit. Theistically, taking refuge in God, whichever way you see God. Philosophically, taking refuge in that divine spirit. Know that Brahman, all about the embodied self and action in its entirety. In other words, they know that everything is truly the spirit. A spirit wrongly perceived is the world. The world rightly perceived is the spirit. So, the rope wrongly perceived is the snake. The snake rightly perceived is the rope. That's basically it. Verse number 30. Sadi bhuta didaivam mam Sadhi yajnam cha ye viduhu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Those who know me, together with what concerns beings, the gods, and sacrifices, fix their mind on me and know me even at the time of death. Those who know me, those who know the spirit as spirit, together with what concerns beings, the gods, and sacrifices. The words here are Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhiyajna. Now, I will not go into the explanation of these three terms because that's how the next chapter will begin. So, all of these three terms are described and explained in chapter 8. And so, we won't go into the discussion right now. In other words, once we know the spirit as spirit, then our mind automatically goes away from all these superficial appearances of the world, and they know me even at the why even at the time of death. It's a little bit like this. Sometimes when we are in good shape, the health is good and everything is good, philosophy is like wonderful. It all says, oh, this is great. What to speak of death? Even when you have a severe headache, say extreme headache, and you say, come on, let's now sit down and read the Gita, and you will say, no, there's no mood for Gita now. You see, the Gita might tell you, you are the spirit, you're not the body. That doesn't make too much sense when there is an extreme physical suffering. It's like, well, let me just take a Tylenol and become fine, kind of, and then let me appreciate the fact that I'm not the body. But it's in a much more intense sense when I'm on my deathbed. So it's like this: when everything is fine, thinking of God and spirit and philosophy, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. But when things are not going well, when things are really bad, even at that hour, can I still know that I'm the spirit? So, and what Krishna is saying here is that those people who have that inner strength, those whose minds are completely focused on the spirit, they are able to remember me even at the time of death. So even the impending death does not take my mind away from the truth. You might remember that incident again in Vivekananda's life. He had heard Ramakrishna say often that he who was born as Rama, who was born as Krishna, is now Ramakrishna. And as you know, most of these first generation of students who came to Vivekananda were all university students. They didn't accept everything just blindly. They questioned everything. And Ramakrishna appreciated that. And so we read this incident that just shortly before Ramakrishna passing, it's extreme, there is this throat cancer, extreme pain. And then this thought came to Narendranath's mind, that even in this state, can you still say that one who was Rama, one who is Krishna is Ramakrishna? And he didn't even say it. Just this thought entered into his mind. And then Ramakrishna just, of course, nothing was hidden. As Krishna himself said, past, present, future, I know everything. Just Ramakrishna looks at him and says, even now you have the doubt? And again he repeated that. And then Vivekananda said, that moment he said, no doubt remain in my mind. So, and just try to remember that. What we truly believe, how we truly see, will be really tested when before our death. It's all nice now to say, I am the spirit. But when death is staring you in the face, what you think about at that time will be the truth. It's easy to put up appearances. It's very easy to appear very devout and spiritual and holy. All of that will be tested just before your death. As I think I mentioned this before to you, a long time back, was one of our swamis many years ago. This happened probably 25, 30 years ago when I was in India. And he had his this tonsillitis operation. And it happened a little, if it's done at a younger age, I hear that it's less, it's much easier. Anyway, he was fairly old, he was in his 40s then. And so it was done, and so they had given him anesthesia, and when they wheeled him out, brought him to the room, he was still, that effect of anesthesia was still there. And so I had gone to see him, and I didn't know what to do. So the doctor said, you just sit by, maybe you hold his hand, and then gradually he will regain his consciousness. And so I just sat there. And as he regained his consciousness, he started speaking in Sanskrit, all verses from the Gita and the Upanishad. I mean, he knew Sanskrit, but normally we never spoke like a regular conversation in Sanskrit. But it was kind of nice. First, I didn't know that he was not fully conscious. So it's just kind of gradually getting his consciousness, and he just started chanting these verses from the Gita. And so then I started speaking, and then we kind of carried on a conversation for some time. And then, of course, by the time he got his full consciousness, and by the time the whole pain returned. And then for next, I think, 3-4 days, I don't remember, he couldn't speak at all. It took time to heal. But as long as that anesthesia effect remained, he was just speaking. And then it was actually wonderful, because at that time he had no control over what he was saying, what he was doing. And the fact that in that state he was just chanting these Gita verses showed that that was what was going on in his mind. And 6 months later then, there was another one person, one young man in Madras who was going to have a surgery also. And to him then, I mentioned this incident. I said, look, this is what happened. And I was just kind of just joking with him, and I said, I want to see what you are going to say when you start come to consciousness. And he was so worried. He said, no, please, nobody should be. I have no idea what I'm going to say. And then I continued to, and I said, no, I'm just going to put a tape recorder and tape everything that you say in that state and make you listen to it. And I was not going to do that. I wasn't even there really when his surgery was done. But I was just kind of joking, and then I left. And then afterward, the surgery went off, and it all went off well. And then afterwards, I heard when I went to see him, and he said, and the others in the hospital confirmed it, that had gone so deeply into his mind that after the surgery was over, and he said, as he regained the first thing he saw was whether there was anyone taping everything that he said. Anyway, so this is, but I mentioned this to show that at such moments, either when we don't have a complete control over our feelings or our words, or when we are facing some critical thing like death, at that time, a real test occurs of all the meditation that you have done in your life, all the books that you have read, all the thinking that you have done, all this thing about I am a spirit, all of that will be tested when some such major things occur in life. And it's good for us. It's good that we have these tests. It then helps us to know where we stand. So we'll stop here. So with this we conclude chapter 7. When we meet next week, and then we will begin with chapter 8. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother again and again. This Sunday, we'll have Antar Yoga, a special program with spiritual reading, prayer, music, meditation. If there is not too much snow. So on Saturday, we'll have the Aarti and meditation as usual at 6 o'clock. Again, I hear that this weekend it's going to snow. We don't know yet how bad or how not bad it will be. So I would strongly suggest that if you plan to come, please check the calendar or the website or call or email. Make sure that the program will be held, because right now, as you all know, and it's not, the roads and commute is not that easy. So hopefully things may not be so bad. And next Wednesday, we will begin chapter 8 of the Gita. Let's conclude with a prayer on page 3 of your books. Om. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto